Game was where every British gamer went for midnight launches and the latest releases. Then, Mike Ashley bought it and turned it into a bargain bin corner inside Sports Direct, destroying 30 years of gaming culture forever. And the story of how this happened reveals the most ruthless business strategy in modern British retail. Picture walking into the game store in Oxford Street on launch night for Grand Theft Auto V. September 2013. The queue stretched around the block, hundreds of gamers clutching pre-order receipts, buzzing with excitement. Staff wearing branded t-shirts handed out energy drinks and promotional materials. The atmosphere was electric, like a festival for people who lived and breathed video games. That single night generated £1.57 million in sales across Games Network. Not just from the game itself, but from strategy guides, merchandise, console accessories, and impulse purchases from customers who'd never normally set foot in a gaming store. The midnight launch wasn't just retail, it was theater, community, and pure marketing genius rolled into one. Game had perfected this formula across 3 decades. They'd survived the transition from Atari to Nintendo, from cartridges to CDs, from single-player adventures to online multiplayer mayhem. Every major gaming milestone in British history had Game's fingerprints all over it. But here's what made them truly special. They'd created something Amazon couldn't replicate: physical discovery. You'd walk in looking for FIFA and leave with an obscure Japanese RPG the staff recommended. That human curation, that serendipity of browsing actual shelves, generated millions in additional revenue that pure e-commerce could never match. Subscribe now, because what Mike Ashley did next is a masterclass in destroying value while pretending to save it. By 2019, Game was wounded but far from dead. Digital downloads had eaten into physical sales, yes, but the company still controlled 40% of the UK's physical gaming market. Their trade-in program alone generated £200 million annually, customers bringing in old games and consoles, walking out with store credit that locked them into the game ecosystem. The numbers tell a fascinating story. Game's average transaction value was £47, compared to £23 for general retailers. Gaming customers were premium customers. They spent more, visited more frequently, and showed fierce brand loyalty. These weren't bargain hunters. They were enthusiasts willing to pay for expertise and experience. But Game's parent company, Sports Direct International, was hemorrhaging cash from other failed acquisitions. House of Fraser was burning through millions. Evans Cycles was struggling. Ashley needed quick wins, and Game looked like the perfect candidate for his signature move: aggressive cost reduction. The first sign of trouble came in January 2020. Game announced they were stopping pre-orders for physical games in their stores. Think about that for a moment. Pre-orders were the lifeblood of gaming retail, customers paying upfront for games months before release, generating cash flow and guaranteeing sales. It was like McDonald's announcing they'd stopped selling burgers. Industry insiders knew exactly what this meant. Games' credit terms with publishers had been slashed. EA, Activision, and Ubisoft no longer trusted the company to pay for stock on the usual 30 to 60-day terms. They wanted cash up front, which Games simply didn't have. But Ashley's real masterstroke was yet to come. Instead of investing in Games' unique strengths, he decided to absorb it into his existing Sports Direct infrastructure. The logic seemed sound on paper: reduce overheads by sharing retail space, cross-sell products to different customer bases, achieve economies of scale. The execution was catastrophic.
Imagine you're a hardcore gamer walking into what used to be your local game store. Instead of dedicated gaming sections with knowledgeable staff, you find a corner of Sports Direct with a few shelves of games squeezed between football boots and protein shakes. The midnight launch events? Gone. The trade-in service that let you fund new purchases? Discontinued. the staff who could debate the merits of different graphics cards, replaced by whoever happened to be working the Sports Direct shift that day. Ashley had fundamentally misunderstood what he'd bought. He saw game as a product distribution business. Get games from publishers, sell them to customers, take the margin. But game was actually a culture business. They were selling identity, community, and expertise wrapped around the physical product. The financial impact was immediate and brutal. Games like-for-like sales plummeted 23% in the first year under Ashley's management. Customer satisfaction scores, which had consistently ranked above 80%, dropped to 34%. The Net Promoter Score, a measure of how likely customers are to recommend a business, went negative for the first time in the company's history. But here's where the story gets really dark. Ashley wasn't just destroying Game's retail presence. He was systematically stripping out everything that made the brand valuable. The company's extensive customer database, built over decades of loyalty card programs and pre-orders, was merged into Sports Direct systems. Suddenly, gaming enthusiasts were receiving emails about football merchandise and gym equipment. The sophisticated inventory management systems that tracked gaming trends and seasonal patterns were replaced with Sports Direct's basic stock control software. Most devastatingly, Game's relationships with independent game developers were severed overnight. Small studios had relied on Game's buyers to champion innovative titles that might not get shelf space elsewhere. These relationships, built over years of trust and mutual success, were worth millions in exclusive deals and early access arrangements. Ashley's team saw them as unnecessary complications. The human cost was staggering. Game had employed over 7,000 people at its peak, not just retail staff, but buyers, marketing specialists, community managers, and technical experts who understood the gaming industry inside out. Within 18 months of Ashley's takeover, that number had been slashed to fewer than 2,000. These weren't just job cuts. They were the systematic elimination of institutional knowledge. Game's head buyer, who'd worked with Japanese publishers for 15 years and could predict which obscure titles would become cult hits, was made redundant. The events team that had organized thousands of successful midnight launches was disbanded. The customer service specialists who could troubleshoot complex technical issues were replaced by a generic call center. Subscribe if you want to understand how modern retail really works, because what Ashley did next reveals the true brutality of his business model. While Game stores were being gutted, Ashley was quietly extracting value through a web of interconnected companies. Sports Direct charged Game millions in management fees for services that had previously been handled in-house. The property portfolio that Game had built up over decades was sold to Ashley's other companies at below-market rates, then leased back at premium prices. This is financial engineering at its most cynical. Ashley was essentially paying himself with Game's own money, whilst simultaneously destroying the business that generated that money. It's like buying a golden goose, then charging it rent for its own nest, whilst slowly plucking out all its feathers. The gaming community watched in horror as their beloved stores disappeared one by one. The flagship Oxford Street location, which had hosted legendary midnight launches for every major release since 1999, was reduced to a small concession inside a Sports Direct. The Birmingham store, which had been a pilgrimage site for Midlands gamers, was closed entirely. But perhaps the most symbolic destruction was what happened to Game's trade-in program. For 20 years, this had been the heart of the business model. Customers would bring in old games and consoles, receive store credit, and use that credit to buy new products. It created a closed-loop economy that kept customers coming back and generated massive margins on second-hand sales. Ashley killed the program in 2024, claiming it was operationally complex and not profitable enough. But internal documents later revealed the real reason. The sophisticated pricing algorithms and logistics networks required to run trade-ins effectively didn't fit into Sports Direct's simplified retail model. The irony is breathtaking. Ashley destroyed a £200 million revenue stream because it was too complicated for his systems to handle. It's like buying a Formula One team and then complaining that the cars are too fast for your mechanics to service. Today, Game exists only as a zombie brand. The name survives on a few remaining storefronts and a basic e-commerce website, but everything that made it special has been systematically eliminated. The midnight launches that created communities are gone. The knowledgeable staff who could guide customers to perfect purchases have been replaced by minimum wage workers who know nothing about gaming. The trade-in program that funded countless gaming habits has been discontinued. Ashley got what he wanted. He extracted maximum short-term value from a struggling retail brand whilst minimizing his own investment. But in doing so, he destroyed something irreplaceable. Game wasn't just a shop, it was the physical manifestation of British gaming culture. It was where friendships were formed, where discoveries were made, where passion was nurtured and celebrated. The gaming industry has moved on. Publishers now market directly to consumers through digital platforms. Influencers and streamers have replaced retail staff as the primary source of game recommendations. The community that once gathered in game stores has dispersed across online forums and social media platforms. But something vital has been lost. The serendipity of physical browsing, the expertise of dedicated staff, the excitement of midnight launches, these experiences can't be replicated digitally. Ashley didn't just close some shops, he eliminated an entire category of cultural experience from British life. The destruction of game is complete, and it's never coming back. What remains is a cautionary tale about what happens when financial engineering meets cultural institutions, when short-term profit extraction trumps long-term value creation, when the people who own businesses have no understanding of what makes them special. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.